Welcome everyone to today's session on social media overview and strategy development. My name is Liz Buttry. I'm the CCC training coordinator. I'd like to thank and welcome Erin, Winstanley, and Meg Brunner for presenting this topic today. I'm pleased to let everyone know that we have an unprecedented 201 registrants for today's session, which is an absolutely tremendous start to the 2012 web seminar series. Please note that today's conference is being recorded and will be assisted by an operator. All participants' lines will remain in a listen-only mode. We will conduct a question and answer session and also encourage participants to use the Q&A feature located at the top of the screen. Our Q&A feature will be reviewed, and our question and answer session will be conducted at the end of the presentation. With that, I will turn things over to Meg Brunner. It's all yours, Meg.
All right. So hello, everyone. I'm Meg Brunner from the CTN Dissemination Library, and today Erin Winstanley of the Ohio Valley Node and I are going to talk about social media. Social media is a challenging subject and one Erin and I could easily talk about all day long if we had the time, but we don't and neither do you. So in today's webinar, we're going to buckle down and focus on giving you a quick overview of the most used social media tools, providing some brief examples of the way these tools can be used in the CTN and in research in general, presenting a case report of describing the successful use of Facebook in engaging in an Ohio community, and offering you some tips and resources on how and why your organization should develop a strategy and a policy before you dive in too deep. By the time we're done today, you should at least have the knowledge needed to keep up in a conversation with a teenager. OMG, LOL. More importantly, though, you'll know one thing teens don't seem to, which is how to use these platforms effectively to disseminate important information in your field. The first thing I want to say before I jump in, though, is don't panic. This webinar is loaded with information, but you'll be able to find a recording of it later at the Dissemination Library CTN training page if you want to review any of it down the line. The social media resource guide we sent out yesterday is also going to be in the library and is a great tool loaded with links, resources, tips, and more on how to get started. Though the results of our pre-webinar survey showed that a lot of you are already at least a little familiar with these tools, I know that some of you consider this not only alien but kind of dangerous territory. I promise, though, social media is not nearly as weird as these two gray dudes are making it look. We are not alone, but in a good way, not a creepy sci-fi movie kind of way. Social media is rapidly expanding and radically changing the world as we once knew it. The ways in which we communicate with each other seem to evolve and grow every few months. Social media is known as the participation internet because the whole aim of it is interaction. Instead of regular old-fashioned websites which offer one-way communication from you to your users, social media opens up a second channel, your users back to you. This two-way channel has the potential to dramatically expand the dissemination of evidence-based practices for addiction treatment at relatively minimal cost. Nearly all medical schools and numerous professional groups, including some of our nodes and CTPs, are already using social media to disseminate information, connect with people both professionally and personally, and research topics, advertise services, and monitor trends. This slide shows what's called a tag cloud, which is a visual representation of the frequency of use of a set of terms. In this case, the answer is given by a group of users to the question, what is one word that describes your experience using social networking sites? Though the most given answers, which are the biggest words in the image, were things like good, great, fun, and okay, the terms I really took note of were things like informative, convenient, and interesting, as well as time-consuming, confusing, and overwhelming. Social media is all these things. It's an easy, convenient way to give and receive information, but without a strategy for using it, it can also quickly become time-consuming and challenging. Given the lack of best practices for social media use in our field, something our work group in the RUC will be looking into next, looking at practical examples of what others are doing seems like a good way to start. One of the things the confused and overwhelmed group may have gotten wrong is the first decision you have to make, which is where to start. So let's take a quick look at the primary contenders, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, blogs, and LinkedIn, and see if we can figure out which platform is the right choice for your goals. We'll start with Facebook since it's the most used of all the social media tools, at least for now. What could you do as a node, CTP, or other organization on Facebook? Well, first and foremost, Facebook allows for the quick and easy sharing of news, information, pictures, videos, links, and events, making it an excellent tool for dissemination of all kinds of stuff. For example, if you are a node involved in the Motivational Incentives Protocol, you could be using a Facebook page to tell your network of followers about the new PAMI training product from Blending and even post the PAMI video, which you can download from their website. You could share the latest motivational incentives related article from the CTN Library's Facebook page with a single click. You could also use Facebook to advertise an upcoming training or dissemination events you're hosting, collect RSVPs, and quickly distribute information and materials to attendees. Why should you bother? Well, because Facebook is huge. It's used by over 500 million people worldwide, which means if Facebook were a country, it would be the third largest in the world. And you can disseminate information to all of those people for free. Even if you only have 10 friends on Facebook, those 10 friends have 10 friends who have 10 friends who have 10 friends. And pretty soon there's a native Amazonian with a bone through his lip checking out your Facebook page on his iPhone or whatever those people would have. And Facebook users aren't just preteens LOLing about Justin Bieber either. The fastest growing population on Facebook are adults college age or older. 50% of American adults and 70% of U.S. companies are using Facebook. Those are your patients, colleagues, students, clinicians, treatment centers, professional organizations, and more. That's a lot of people you could be trading information with. There are already several CTN-related pages on Facebook, pages from the Western, Florida, Ohio Valley, and Delaware Valley nodes, plus a page for the CTN Dissemination Library, and as of last week, one for CTN training, which is this webinar series. So everyone should look for that as soon as this webinar is over. This shot of the Western node's Facebook page gives us a quick look at some of Facebook's key features. For example, on the left, you can see which organizations the node, oops, sorry, I'm trying to do the little pointer thing here. On the left, you can see which organizations the node has connected with on Facebook already, including the Dissemination Library and ASAM. This means the node can see those organizations' updates and easily share relevant posts with their own followers. In the middle, you can see some sample posts. The first is about the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse special issue on the CTN. The second is a news article the node saw on NIDA's Facebook page and with a single click was able to share with their followers too. Users can click like on posts to show their interest, providing the node with good feedback on what their readers want to learn about. Users can also post comments or ask questions, opening a dialogue with a node and its other followers. Now let's take a quick look at one of the most heavily trafficked Facebook pages, the one for the New York Public Library. This page is followed by over 39,000 people, which means every post the library makes reaches at minimum 39,000 users. The main thing I want to point out, though, are the links over on the left. These are links to external sources like the library's Twitter and YouTube pages, as well as some content from their website. These are all created using free Facebook add-on applications designed to help you integrate other social media platforms into your Facebook page. If you click on that Twitter link, for example, you don't go to Twitter. Instead, Twitter comes to you, loading right there in the main section of the library's Facebook page. There are many ways to streamline the use of multiple social media platforms, and if you plan to use more than one, these kinds of add-ons can help you and your users multitask more efficiently. I also wanted to point out that the New York Public Library knows the secret to sparking dialogue on Facebook, asking a question. There are two directions of information sharing going on in social media, the push of information, which is from the page to the user, and the pull of information from the user to the page. Ideally, when you push some information to your users, you'll also be pulling information back in the form of their comments and responses. In this example, New York Public Library asked its patrons what they were reading during a recent hurricane and ended up with over 60 replies featuring book titles, recommendations, and more. That not only helps the public library, but it's great for all the other readers of that page as well. There's a whole lot of sharing going on. Oops, I went the wrong way. There we go. The newest feature at Facebook, and one you've probably heard some buzz about, is the timeline. This feature was recently rolled out on personal profiles, not organizational pages or groups, and essentially all it does is anchor all your current and previous content in time. Past activity, which you previously had to scroll down through screen after screen to find, is now easily accessible through an archives panel organized by year and then month. Every time Facebook makes a change to its layout, users erupt in a flurry of fury about it, and Timeline was no exception. As typically happens, though, once everybody got used to it, people quieted down, deleted or hid posts they no longer wanted to have be retrievable, something that's very easy to do, and life on Facebook continues on. This image, by the way, is a graphic the Israeli Drug Authority created to illustrate the new timeline feature, showing 2 years in the life of a person, the left representing a year on drugs and the right a year sober. Now, sure, Facebook is easy to implement, but when it comes to simply pushing information out fast, you can't beat Twitter. Posts on Twitter are limited to 140 characters, which may seem like a lot until you realize 1/5 of that is eaten up by the phrase Appalachian Tri-State node alone. To use Twitter, you have to learn how to be succinct and fast. Twitter is used by over 200 million people, a little less than half the audience of Facebook. But one thing that makes Twitter unique historically is that the Library of Congress has been archiving every public tweet since 2006. So everything you post on Twitter, saved for all eternity. Yet another in a long line of reasons why you should think before you post on any social media site. If you all think back a couple months, you probably remember the story about Anthony Weiner and the scandalous photos he was sending out on Twitter. And just as a note there, he was sending those messages out as private messages or direct messages to single tweeters that he was connected to. They were not intended to be publicly available at all. And yet, did those messages still reach the public? Yes, they did. And that's another thing to keep in mind on social media, which is that no matter how secure you think you have your settings set up, information always has a way of finding an out. Twitter has been growing dramatically in the last year, with tweets posted per day increasing over 250%. Yet, as you can see from this slide, 49% of users who sign up on Twitter never or only rarely actually use it. What this says to me, based on experience, is that people have a hard time figuring out how to use Twitter productively. It also means that while you can use Twitter to disseminate information, images, and videos widely at virtually no cost, that doesn't mean your message is being heard. For many organizations, there isn't a single platform that can be used as a perfect standalone tool for dissemination. Using multiple platforms will help you reach the broadest audience. But everybody from Obama to Justin Bieber to the CDC has been tweeting successfully for years, and not just to create virtual networks, but also to bring people together in real time. How are they doing it? Let's look at some examples. This is a screenshot of the National Council for Community Behavioral Health Twitter page. At the top, you can see their logo, their name, their Twitter handle, which always starts with an @ symbol, a brief description, and a link to their homepage. All things every organizational profile should include. Below is a list of tweets posted recently, and they're posting about 1 or 2 a day, which is a little above average, I would say. The most important feature on this slide I want to mention, though, is the lists link on the right. Once you start using Twitter and begin following a lot of people or organizations, this list feature can be a great way to organize all that incoming information. You can use it to group like tweeters together. So, for example, if you were a fan of the 80s TV show MacGyver, you'd probably be following, say, Richard Dean Anderson, the star, Lee David Zlotoff, who developed the show, Henry Winkler, who produced it, or maybe Terry Hatcher, who was a guest star in that one super awesome episode about the haunted house. People like that. Put all those accounts in a list named, say, My Heroes, and then when you're short on time and you only want to see what they've posted recently, you select that list and voila, everyone else's posts disappear. In more practical terms, you could do this with CTN members, ATOD organizations, treatment facilities, West Wing, Desperate Housewives, Lost, etc. It's a very useful way to see only what you want to see when you are short on time, which most of us are. As an example of practical tweeting in the CTN, let's take a look at the Twitter feed of a CTP, the Betty Ford Center. They've been using Twitter for a long time and have developed a broad strategy designed to appeal to a wide variety of followers, from those seeking prevention information or interaction with other groups like SAMHSA, to inspirational quotes for those in recovery, news items of interest to the general public, and tweets aimed at advertising new services and products. I've also seen treatment providers using Twitter to let people know when they have available treatment beds, and researchers can use Twitter and Facebook to both recruit and follow up with study subjects, something Erin will talk about in a few minutes. In terms of content, Twitter is best at pushing information out. Unlike Facebook, while it can be used as a forum for discussion, that's really not its strong suit. It can be very hard to follow conversations between tweeters, especially when more than one person is involved. So that's the end of the Facebook and Twitter section. And before we go forward, I want to do a quick poll. So you should see a question on your screen now that says, which of the following statements is true? And you're going to select your answer there. And the answer options are you can share videos on Facebook but not on Twitter. You can share videos on Twitter but not on Facebook. You can share videos on both platforms, or you can't share videos either place. Here come the answers.
All right, Meg, let's give them a few minutes to accumulate, and then I will go ahead and show the results to the audience as well.
Great, okay.
Okay, let's just go ahead and review the results with the audience.
Sounds good. So, surprisingly, you guys were very, very close here. Only a couple of people answered this totally wrong, and most of you answered it almost right or all the way right. And the correct answer is you can share videos on both platforms. So even though I didn't make that a focus of the Twitter talk, you can actually share videos on Twitter just like you can on Facebook. You usually post a link, and then it'll show up on the sidebar of Twitter when you click on the link in someone's Twitter feed. So let's go back to the slides. There we go. Google Plus is the new kid on the block in the social media world. It launched to a group of test users last July, opened to the public in September, and only just last November began allowing organizations to create pages in addition to individuals. As you can see from the little screenshot there, it looks very similar to Facebook, and the same types of content is being posted there. People are posting videos, they're posting updates on news items they've seen, that kind of stuff. So it's new. By last week, it already had over 90 million users, and that's 1/5 of Facebook's numbers in only a few months. So it's seriously competing with Facebook right now. Because it's just starting up, Google Plus lacks a lot of the bells and whistles of Facebook, which on the plus side means pages there are very simple and clean and easy to navigate. But on the minus side means pages for organizations have very limited functions. One thing about Google Plus that really appeals to users, though, is that it lets you post higher quality photos and even HD video. Facebook's limits on file sizes are much more strict, and this has made Google Plus the optimal place for users creating and sharing a lot of multimedia content in particular. Hands down, though, the best feature of Google Plus and the feature giving Facebook the most competition are its privacy controls. Though Facebook lets you do virtually the same things Google Plus does in this regard, Google Plus makes it 10 times easier. Every time you connect with a new person on Google Plus, you're prompted to put them into a circle. Circles are categories you create in your account that let you group similar people together. For example, the CTN Dissemination Library's little test page here on Google Plus has circles for treatment agencies, research organizations, CTN members, and non-CTN members. People can be put into multiple circles depending on who they are and what kind of information you might want to direct to them. And then every time you post on Google+, as you can see here in the middle, your list of circles appears, and you can select all of the ones you want your post to appear to. This is a powerful tool, especially for organizations with numerous and varied followers, as it allows you to push information only to those it's relevant to, sparing the others the clutter of information that's not useful to them. You can also select a circle and only view posts from the people in that circle, which is also a big time saver. Let's see here. Ironically, Google Plus's worst feature, in my opinion, is its search function. For a site with over 90 million accounts, it frustratingly lumps personal accounts with organizational pages, meaning my search here for addiction treatment returned an impossibly long list of both treatment organizations and people who use both those terms somewhere in their profile, and the two types of accounts are not sorted and can't be sorted. Pages for organizations and companies are marked with the little symbol that you see here, but still that means in order to find only those, you have to scroll through dozens of screens looking for that icon. It's a bad sign, I would say, when people using your platform go off on their own to develop tools to make it more usable. However, thank God for nerds, because a lot of people have done just that for Google+, creating a variety of more functional search tools like gplussearch.com or findpeopleonplus.com. Other important Google+ features to make note of are Hangouts, the +1 button, and the Google bar. Hangouts are what Google+ calls its free video chat service. This function lets you chat online to as many people simultaneously as you want. You can even chat with an entire circle. Coming soon is a feature that will let users in Hangouts post and share documents too, making this a very real competitor to similar services like Skype. Hangout videos can be saved and even posted to YouTube, which is also both really cool and kind of terrifying. The +1 button is Google Plus's version of Facebook's like button. It lets you tell your friends what you're digging and see what they've enjoyed in return. The difference between +1 and like, though, is that Google uses data from +1 clicks as feedback to refine its primary search engine. Once you're on Google+, when you do a search in Google, you'll begin seeing +1 information from Google+ connections of yours in your results, giving you feedback on the relevancy of the sites in the list. Finally, the whole point of Google+ was to help turn Google into a super-duper one-stop shopping spot. The Google bar, which you see at the bottom there, now runs across the top of every Google-related page and lets Google users easily toggle back and forth between their Google+ page, their Gmail accounts, Calendar, Google Docs, Google Sites, Shopping, Search, Scholar, everything you can think of. Now, if Google could just acquire Angry Birds and stick that up there too, I'd probably never need to leave the site again, although at the same time I find this a little bit alarming that I can pretty much do everything I need to do from one application at this point. And now it's time for another poll. We'll just recap Google+ information since this is such a new one. Which of these statements is not true? Google+ is less than a year old. Google+ has more users than Facebook. Google+ was designed to work smoothly with all other Google apps. You can post higher quality videos and photos on Google+ than on Facebook. Which one is not true?
Okay, Erin, I'm going to go ahead and show the results to the audience member if you want to go ahead and review.
Okay. And so now you can see the results there. Most of you got this right. The false statement is that Google+ has more users than Facebook. Facebook still has almost 5 times as many users as Google+, but it is catching up very quickly. So back to the slides. We're almost done with this section. Hang in there, people. All right. The last platform I'm going to talk about is the blog. Blogs are the oldest of all social media tools, and in fact, they've been around so long now that people tend to forget they count as social media too. But blogs aren't just static web pages that solely push information to users. They're interactive. They're every bit as participatory internet as Facebook, in fact, with great versatility when it comes to the type of content you can share: text, video, audio, images, documents, and more. And blogs allow for easy comments and conversation too, much like Facebook, but on a larger scale, by which I mean blog posts tend to be much longer than typical posts on Facebook, and conversations can stretch on for a long time as well. I'm sure many of you have read or seen blogs before, so I'll just quickly point out 2 relevant to the CTN. On the left is the Dissemination Library's What's New blog, which lets readers know about new items in the library, non-CTN articles that may be of interest to CTN members, and upcoming events and trainings. On the right is the blog for my node, the Pacific Northwest node, which also uses a blog and sort of uses it in lieu of a more traditional newsletter, something that makes it exponentially easier and faster for us to disseminate information to our node without having to do all the added work of desktop publishing. Multiple people have administrative access to the blog and can post items there, making it easy for us to spread the work around. Blogs also make it so that we can share information as soon as we find out about it, rather than waiting for the next newsletter issue. And node members can post comments or questions, something that they also couldn't do with an old print newsletter. Both let users sign up to automatically get new posts sent right to their email, making keeping our readers informed easy for everyone. Our node's webpage also has a box on it that automatically highlights the latest 3 posts from the node's blog, too, an easy feature to add to any website once you're up and blogging. Likewise, Facebook can auto-import blog posts now as well. So you can post once on your blog and it can show up in people's email, on their Facebook pages, and other places like that as well, all with the click of a button, which is a very nice feature. And now we're going to go over to Erin, who's going to take over to talk to us about LinkedIn.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah, let's see. All right, 58% of those who took our pre-webinar survey reported having a profile on LinkedIn. For those of you who are not familiar with it, LinkedIn is the professional networking site that can be used to seek employment, connect with current and former colleagues, or participate in job-related forums. There are approximately 135 million professionals worldwide using LinkedIn. And I like to think of it as the gateway to social media because it's fairly easy to use. One of the things that I like about LinkedIn is that it's essentially my electronic Rolodex of professional connections. So as my colleagues move, change jobs, or get promoted, I have accurate information on them that enables me to get in touch with them. LinkedIn has been around since 2006, but it has seen substantial growth in the past 2 to 3 years, as you can see in the chart on the slide. Approximately 80% of companies are using social media to recruit new employees. The basic version of LinkedIn is free. However, there is a premium edition available for a fee with enhanced capabilities for job seekers. You can have a company page on LinkedIn. NIDA's LinkedIn page has 295 followers, which is quite meager in comparison to the nearly 4,000 followers that NIDA has on Facebook. But nevertheless, this is a targeted audience, and we still could disseminate CTN findings to those 295 followers on NIDA's LinkedIn page. There have recently been some nice enhancements in LinkedIn's company pages, and I expect to see some more enhancements that will grow the utility of having a company page on LinkedIn. Again, for those of you who haven't been on LinkedIn, this is a snapshot of my profile on LinkedIn, and you can see that the content of a LinkedIn page closely resembles one's CV or resume. My LinkedIn profile is open to the public. If I'm presenting at a conference, I actually like it that a participant could Google my name and that they would be able to easily find my credentials. As a matter of fact, if you Google my name, the first link that you come to is my LinkedIn profile, so you can see this as a way to potentially manage your online profile. My LinkedIn profile includes my education and skills, work experience and professional memberships, my publications, recommendations from former colleagues. On my page, you can also see my posts that I've made to either Twitter or Facebook, as well as events that I'm either organizing or I'm attending. There are several built-in applications that you can use to enhance your profile on LinkedIn. For example, you can see that I use an application called TripIt to let my colleagues know my travel plans. So you can see that I indicated that I was going to attend the NIDA Steering Committee meeting. This application alerted me to which of my colleagues were in the Rockville area, and my colleagues would know that I'm attending a meeting there should they actually want to get together with me in person. I can quickly add documents to be shared online via a web-based application that's called Box. Box is like Dropbox. It provides online document storage. So you can see that I have a file labeled Ohio Valley Node embedded within my LinkedIn profile. You can download our latest newsletter or some slides that I've recently done. This is a great option when you want to share documents that might be too large for some people's email boxes or even your own. I found this to be really helpful when I'm actually traveling and presenting at conferences out of town. I can simply direct folks to my LinkedIn page if they want an electronic version of my slides. As an aside, we actually used a share folder in Box with a designated list of users to share and comment on the development of these slides. There is an iPhone app for Box, so you can remotely access your files as well. So I really like this application and its cross-platform utility. So I want to take a few minutes to explain the importance of virtual social networks. I have 247 connections on LinkedIn. If everyone I knew on LinkedIn shared a CTN dissemination product like PAMI, then it could potentially reach over 28,000 people. You can begin to see how your friends and their friends can incrementally expand the reach of our dissemination products. And even if only 15% of those who routinely log into LinkedIn and saw the information, that could still reach nearly 4,000 people. I have some colleagues in LinkedIn that are in the Ohio Department of Drug and Alcohol Services, you know, our state agency that oversees that. And when I go to in-person meetings, they tell me that they've read the most recent article that I posted on LinkedIn, for example, the primary results of the POTE study. As my younger cousins often say to me, I'm going to actually geek out on you a little here as we begin to dabble into social network theory. This is a map of my LinkedIn connections. It shows my connections and how my colleagues are linked with each other. The color represents the different colors represent the clusters in my network. So, for example, blue represents professionals in the addiction field, which includes a lot of people within the NIDA CTN. The larger the dot, the greater the number of contacts that that person has within a given cluster. If I disseminate information to my running group members, represented by the orange dots on the bottom, they have a red circle around them, you can see that this is a closed network. that none of my running group connections are in the field of addictions, and when I push information to this group, then it's not going to go very far in my network. It's certainly not going to span the different clusters in my network. Now, on the other hand, you can see that Eric Strain is an important bridge in my network. And for those of you who do not know Dr. Strain, he's faculty at Johns Hopkins, and he's the editor of Drug and Alcohol Dependence. He's an important person in my network because of his bridging role and the size of his dot, the number of contacts that he has in his cluster. The red circles represent my former colleagues at a psychiatric hospital. They're in the top corner there. So you can see that Sherry, the addiction therapist at the hospital, is a bridge to the larger cluster of addiction professionals. If I want to disseminate findings from NIDA CTN studies to the psychiatric hospital, Sherry could help make that happen. And identification of bridges is really important, when we want to span outside and make sure that there is continuity across all of our networks in the dissemination of information. So this picture, I've zoomed in on my colleagues working in the addiction fields. You can see that I'm closer to people in my node, like Greg Brigham and Frankie Kropp. So imagine that this wasn't individuals, but rather companies. You could look at your network connections to make better strategic decisions regarding who is missing from your network. For example, let's assume that we're an addiction treatment center and we'd like to build better connections with primary care facilities in your area. We might look for individuals or organizations that may bridge to primary care in much the same way that Dr. Strain is a bridge between the addiction researchers and Johns Hopkins. Another example would be that I only have limited resources to disseminate information regarding a new addiction treatment. Based on my addiction cluster, I would choose to disseminate to Greg Brigham, Dennis McCarty, and Kathleen Carroll, as those are the people with the largest number of connections within that cluster. In this cluster, everyone is so connected that there is a duplicity of social ties, which means that we don't have to disseminate to everyone in this group. They are well connected, and eventually they'll disseminate things on their own. If Kathleen Carroll doesn't tell you and Greg never logs into LinkedIn, then maybe Dennis will do it. And if Dennis doesn't, you can actually see that there's quite a few other people that might be able to disseminate information like Paul. And let's see, where's Meg? Meg right there. So you don't need everybody to be online and disseminating information. You just need some key people with a lot of connections. Now that we've presented several different social media tools, let's take a bird's eye view. And the left-hand column of the table is the list of things that you can do with social media that Meg presented earlier on. All of these tools can be used to disseminate information, recruit study participants, and drive website traffic, whether your website is an organization or a website for a research study. Pictures and videos, as you know, Meg actually already said, are really best suited for Facebook or Google+. You can use Facebook or LinkedIn to organize events. And if your target audience is professionals within your social network and not necessarily the general public, then LinkedIn is going to be a really good option for you. Based on the results of our pre-webinar survey, a lot of you are already using social media to maintain and build relationships, post pictures or videos, and disseminate information. A small group of you are using social media to advertise products or services. And in response to the open-ended question, how can the NIDA CTN use social media to support its mission, you guys thought of some additional things that we could be doing, like engage more treatment providers, develop an internal CTN social network site, create SIG-like groups on social media, create a CTN page for all of our studies, disseminate findings outside of the specialized addiction audience more generally to the public, and connect with the next generation of clinicians, which is really, this last one is a great idea because given the number of professional organizations and university departments that are using social media, it'd be a really good thing to do. Facebook and Google are better when you want to push and pull information. As Meg said, when you want, as the page, you push to the user, and then the user, you pull information and push whether you're a user or the page. LinkedIn is best, I think, as an electronic Rolodex at this time and to recruit new employees. Twitter or Facebook are best at communicating messages that are urgent or during a disaster. So, for example, during Hurricane Katrina, clinics could have used these forums to disseminate information regarding where services were relocated to. You would not have to reveal any patient-level information to do this. So so communicating via social media can be a part of your organization's disaster response plans. The downside to Facebook is that it can be difficult to keep your personal and professional world separate. People want to friend individuals more than they want to like organizational pages. While Facebook has developed pages and groups, there is still an individually oriented culture on Facebook. To further illustrate this point, 84% of those who took the pre-webinar survey reported using social media, and yet only 38% have ever visited a social media page for NIDA or the CTN. So we certainly can do a better job internally of promoting our social media pages. This is a picture of my personal connections on Facebook. My Facebook connections that are in the behavioral health field are that yellowish, greenish color. Red represents my friends from the hometown where I grew up. That's in Connecticut. And you can see the runners, again, they're in pink. There are two main points that I would like to make by showing you this slide. One, my largest group of personal friends on Facebook are actually working in the field of behavioral health, which constitutes 30% of my 267 friends on Facebook. So I know some of you are thinking, oh boy, I need to get a life outside of work, but you know, it is what it is. The second point is that many of my behavioral health connections are not connected. They don't even seem to form their own cluster. There is this sort of small cluster in the bottom right-hand corner, but it's not nearly as defined as or pronounced as when we were looking at my LinkedIn network. I've moved around a lot during my life, but I've been working in the field for over 15 years, so I have a lot of non-redundant ties in my professional network on Facebook, which are represented by dots that are not connected. Because these dots are not connected or redundant, they are likely to connect to larger social networks. If you'd allow me to speculate for a moment, comparing the clustering that we saw with my LinkedIn network compared to my Facebook network, one might hypothesize that the greater level of clustering seen on LinkedIn is because of working within the NIDA CTN, right? It's a network, and we are inherently connected together. Now, I know a lot of people struggle with this issue. You know, Facebook has substantial reach. It's estimated that there are going to be 1 billion users by this August on Facebook, and its full multimedia platform makes it hands down our top choice. But depending on your social media objectives and your target audience, you may not want your professional and personal worlds colliding. One key characteristic of social networks is their dynamic changing structure. If the culture of Facebook as such changes as such to encourage liking of organizations, then this issue may become less important. In fact, the separation of personal and professional may be easier to manage using Google+, as Meg demonstrated in the different circles. For some of us, though, we've let our personal and professional worlds collide, and in fact, we've survived the collision. Nevertheless, this is a really important consideration, and I still think it's a personal decision. Okay, we've been on the call for a little while now, so we want to go ahead and take a stretch break. We appreciate your attention. So what you're going to want to do is turn up the volume on your speakers. You might want to turn off your video cameras. And we're going to take a stretch break while we show you a creative way to use YouTube to communicate positive health behaviors. Before I show the video, feel free to dance along. You can do the hustle, the sprinkler, two-step, pop and lock. Go where you need to go with this. I might even get up and dance. Let's see. So hopefully you've all had a chance to see that message from the Arthritis Foundation. So it's a really nice way to communicate positive health messages. So you probably didn't think you were going to do something as cool today as participate in a flash mob silent disco, but you did. And, you know, this is just the way that Meg and I roll. So now you've got something to tweet about when you get home from work. But we're going to transition now and to talking about using social media in research. Using social media tools for research is an emerging area of development. You can use social media to recruit study participants, to conduct online surveys, and to locate subjects for follow-up interviews. and maybe most importantly, to drive traffic to research study websites. And I think that's really the key here, using social media in research studies. Some sites in the CTN 44 are using social media to contact and locate study participants. Advertising studies via social media may boost recruitment, and the effectiveness of which is, of course, contingent upon your target sample population. When you advertise for a study, you can see whether your friends endorse the study advertisement or not, as you can see in the circle in the bottom right-hand corner. My friend Lisa likes this gout study, and I'm not really sure what that says about her, but it lets me know that she likes it. If you'd like to learn more about setting up a Twitter or Facebook account, as well as how to use social media as a research tool, we'll be covering those issues in greater depth during our next webinar on February 29th. Now that we've provided you with a quick overview of social media, I'd like to tell you how our rural community in Southeast Ohio is using Facebook to address the prescription drug epidemic in their community. Scioto County is one of the hardest hit areas in the prescription drug epidemic, and is located approximately 2 hours southeast of Cincinnati. The homicide rate in rural Scioto County is now higher than the homicide rate in Columbus, Cleveland, or Cincinnati. There are actually so many rogue pain clinics in this area that it's on the DEA's hot list nationwide for prescription drug dealing. These are real photos from Scioto County in the next few slides. In the picture on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see at one time the Welcome to Portsmouth sign, which is a city in Scioto County, was trumped by this gigantic advertisement for a pain clinic. Point that out to you. Scioto County has several community-based groups working to address the prescription drug epidemic. Some of these groups are virtual and some meet in person, and there's a lot of participant overlap across these different groups. They have a Facebook group with well over 3,000 members called Fix the Scioto County Problems of Drug Abuse, Misuse, and Overdose. They have an in-person group called the Portsmouth, Ohio RX Drug Task Force, which has representatives from local and state level agencies, community treatment providers, individuals in recovery, families struggling with addiction, church members, and many others. They have a support group called Solace, which meets in person and has a Facebook group page. In the picture, you can see Governor John Kasich is holding Bob Howard's hand while State Representative Terry Johnson gives her shoulders a comforting squeeze. At the time this photo was taken during a news conference, Barb was sharing the story of her daughter's death from prescription drug abuse. This group has used Facebook to organize a variety of community-based events, and even a petition that went to the governor. So while approximately 5 to 75 people will show up for a community meeting, with their virtual network of over 3,000 members, they can rapidly disseminate information. They have a large audience to advertise events like pill mill protests. They have a large community to brainstorm creative projects, help organize and facilitate those projects. They can tap into the skills of various community members like graphic designers and printers to make T-shirts. In terms of effective community organizing, the Facebook group is a mechanism for members to be involved in real time and to immediately share their success stories. There has been a tremendous amount of local and national media attention on Scioto County. In fact, the Scioto County Commissioner of Public Health declared drug abuse a public health emergency in January 2010. They were featured in an episode of A&E's Intervention called Hillbilly Heroin. Perhaps you saw it. They were also featured on Nightline, PBS, National Geographic, 60 Minutes, and New York Times, just to name a few. In fact, I have a hard time keeping up with all of the media attention that they've received. I believe that they were able to gain so much local and national media attention because they harnessed the strength of their virtual Facebook community, which has become a very powerful group in making changes happen. As I mentioned earlier, Scioto County is about 2 hours from Cincinnati, where I'm located. Dr. Jean Smoes and I have attended several meetings in person. I was actually down there just last week. And we did a buprenorphine training actually this past spring. Social media has allowed us to maintain and even grow our professional relationships with key clinical and community stakeholders, which has been really nice. In the picture on the right, you can see Frank. He actually develops and maintains the Facebook page. You can see me. You can see Joanna, she is the founder of Solace, Lily's in recovery, and Lisa is the public health nurse for the city of Portsmouth. These guys are pretty amazing, and they have accomplished so much working together. What have they accomplished in their community besides bringing so much media attention to drug abuse? All 12 pain clinics in Portsmouth are now closed. That's pretty substantial. And because of their tireless efforts legislation known as House Bill 93 was passed last year, which ensures stricter regulation of pain clinics, increased education for physicians, and expanded use of the electronic prescription monitoring database in Ohio. But to give you an example of really why House Bill 93 is so important, prior to this legislation, a person with an ownership stake in a pain clinic down there was a convicted cocaine trafficker. It's really hard to imagine that convicted drug dealers can own pain clinics. This seems like a clear conflict of interest to me. When I asked the founders of this Facebook group, what's their key to success in engaging their community, they said the group was started by community members, and that was Frank, who also monitored the page. This is a community-built and owned Facebook page. They were not afraid of controversy, which, you know, working in the field of drug abuse can be plentiful, particularly when you're in a conservative, rural, highly religious area. In fact, they said that their membership grew during times of debate. They were really creative. For example, when the police would raid a pill mill, they would post a virtual donut award for the police, which was a cartoon character of a police officer eating a donut. See Exhibit A. They also brought real donuts to the police, who started to look forward to their donut deliveries. This Facebook page made really important connections. Again, you can see how it's bridging people. It made connections between health officials, the police, treatment providers, and community members. Again, they've done an awful lot working together. This slide is really displaying one of our main points today, which is that we aren't alone in the virtual world of social media. This is just a partial view of the Ohio Valley Node social media virtual network. Green arrows represent Facebook relationships. Yellow represents Twitter relationships. Black circles represent that we have an in-person relationship. Dotted lines represent LinkedIn connections. I think you're starting to get the point. I didn't even add Google Plus on here yet. But really what I'm trying to show you is just the multitude of layers that are defining this virtual network. You can see that we have connections with NIDA CTN nodes, CTPs, individuals within the NIDA CTN, treatment centers outside of the NIDA CTN, professional organizations such as the National Council and the American Psychological Association. During 2011, our Facebook page had over 29,000 views. So we don't have that many people like us. I think the current number is 61. But we end up with an average of 60 or 80 monthly users, and we actually have had a peak of 350. We have over 280 followers on Twitter right now. Now I want to talk about social media strategies and really get into some of the stuff that makes folks really nervous about social media. When it comes to social media policies, the most important thing that we know is that one size doesn't fit all. Your policies will be determined by where you work and for what purpose you are using social media. Academic settings may have minimal policies. In fact, the University of Cincinnati, where I work, does not even have a social media policy at this time. Clinical settings would benefit from having clearly defined policies, particularly in respect to protecting patient confidentiality. In this slide, you can also see that defining your target audience is an important component of both your strategy and policy development. Okay, I think we're going to take a poll right now. Let's see. There we go. The primary organization that you work for is academic, clinical, or nonprofit.
Okay, Erin, I'm going to go ahead and show the polling results as they accumulate.
Okay, so it looks like about 45% of you are in an academic setting, so you might have fairly lax policies, but, you know, we're still looking at potentially close to 1/3 in a clinical setting. Okay. I'm going to move back to this. Now, these are the results of our pre-webinar survey. And let's see, so does your employer have a workplace policy regarding social media? So in fact, you can see that the vast majority of you, 43%, actually don't even know. Some of you know, and it's about the equal amount, 43%, you do have a policy. And there's a substantial number of people that are reporting that they're actually prohibited from using social media in the workplace. So that's obviously a concern in being able to do these sorts of activities at the workplace. If your organization does not have a social media policy, this slide gives you some domains to consider in developing a policy. First, you need to know who's your social media administrator. For a lot of businesses, social media has become part of their marketing departments, whereas the Mayo Clinic has created an entire new center for social media. I'm actually on their listserv. In your policies, you should define the scope of content, establish privacy expectations. For example, what type of information is considered private? Address defamation, slander, or libel. For example, what's going to happen if an employee posts negative comments about the company online? And protection of patient confidentiality, which I cannot repeat enough. Policies need to be mindful of federal laws such as the Civil Rights Act, American with Disabilities Act, HIPAA, of course, and general tort. Social media policies should include educating employees to improve their online behavior, particularly in regards to the workplace. And it should be noted that some of this is pertinent to any electronic form of communication that takes place at the workplace. That's the key here, at the workplace, whether that be social media, email, or via text message. Some employees may need to be educated about the limitations of privacy settings, the importance of which we're going to cover in the next slide. Digital communications are often stored by third-party sites and can be hacked, as Zappos recently was, and hackers gain access to customers' password and partial credit card numbers. Employees need to know the consequences of policy violations. For example, some clinical settings may have policies strictly forbidding staff to be friends with patients on Facebook and may determine that a violation of this policy is grounds for termination. Medical organizations, such as the Ohio State Medical Association, you can see in the right-hand column, may have best practices that can be used to ensure that your organization's social media experiences are positive. And while some of these best practices should be self-evident, it's probably still a good idea to be mindful of these principles. The Office of National Labor Relations recently released a report on social media cases. If you read this report, you'll see that it's actually very confusing to identify online behaviors that are grounds for termination, and sometimes you'll see that company policies are, in fact, overstating their boundaries of when they can terminate employees. If your digital or online communications are deemed concerted activity, then you'll have a lot of freedom in what you can do. You can, in fact, say very negative things about your boss. Not that I'm recommending that. However, if you're not covered under concerted activity, and depending on your workplace social media policy, you could be in trouble. This report includes an example that might be relevant to our field. And so in the report, they talk about an employee who was doing an overnight shift in a mental hospital, and she had a conversation with friends only on Facebook, and this is a quote from the report. It was spooky being alone overnight in a mental institution. One client was cracking her up, and that employee did not know whether the client was laughing at her, with her, or at the client's own voices. It turns out that a friend of a friend was a former patient who reported this Facebook conversation to the mental institution administrators. For this Facebook dialogue between friends only as the privacy setting, the employee was rightfully terminated. I think this case illustrates the complexity of social media, the limitations of privacy settings, and the need to make sure that employees are appropriately aware and educated on company policies. In sum, cover all your bases, have your social media policy reviewed by a lawyer. % of Americans are using social media, which is a really much greater reach than our journals or our email distribution list, but that's still not everybody. Just 2 months ago, the FCC announced a plan to subsidize broadband internet services and computers for low-income families because our federal government wants to make internet accessible to all Americans. I do not think that social media is a passing fad at all, and in fact, our current government is making substantial investments in e-health. Other disadvantages are that technologies are quickly changing. Is Google Plus the next big thing? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there's something else on the horizon. Nevertheless, these are new things for us to learn, and it can be difficult to keep up with these changes when our financial resources are limited, particularly in times like now. The advantages are that it allows for rapid dissemination, which for the most part is free. You can connect across vast geographic distances, it reinforces existing relationships, and it virtually expands our professional networks. One Ohio Valley Node CTP that I spoke with about social media said that it's exciting but a little scary because it's such a different way of doing business, which I thought is a simple way to sum it up. There was an article in the New York Times earlier this month about people being fearful about social media, and the author compared this fear to when the telephone was introduced 100 years ago, and now I'm quoting the article. There was some hand-wringing over the social dangers that this new technology posed, increased sexual aggression, damaged relationships. It was going to bring our society down, end quote. I'm not sure why they thought the telephone was going to cause sexual aggression. I've gotten rid of my home phone, but that's not why. Sometimes things are scary, but we just need to move through our fears. Moving forward, what do we know? We can learn some things from the success of the Obama presidential election campaign. This was the first presidential campaign to fully embrace social media, and many believe that he was elected in part because of his digital strategy. The Obama election campaign didn't rely on a singular mode of internet-based communication. Rather, it used multiple strategies, with the hub being his website, change.gov. Another important aspect of his strategy is that it used electronic communications to organize in-person events. This was not a virtual-only social network. The case report from Ohio was also not just a virtual-only group. It can and should connect people, real people, in real space and time. We know that social media we know that social media is one tool with a limited purpose and reach, but social media can be combined with other internet-based strategies to make social change happen despite the odds. I think this is the essence of social media that the NIDA CTN can tap into to vastly expand our shared knowledge. I mean, can you imagine how awesome it would be if a CTN publication or video went viral? Talk about making an impact. I mean, it doesn't even need to go the millions viral, just even I'll take a couple of thousand people. This picture on the bottom of the slide is Ted Williams, also known as the man with the golden pipes. He was a homeless when someone made a video of his beautiful voice as he solicited donations on a busy street corner in Columbus, Ohio. The video was posted on YouTube and it went viral, and I think in less than 48 hours. Ted struggles with his fame and his own recovery from addiction. So I want to recap our key points. Social media tools are about relationships. Dissemination is far-reaching and immediate. It can bridge geographic distances. It has an enhanced value when it's combined with other dissemination strategies. And be mindful of that which you cannot see. What I mean is be mindful of those online lurkers. If you use Facebook a lot, you know who I mean. Those people who are regularly on Facebook, but you never see any signs of their presence. It's kind of easy to forget who your online audience is when you never hear or see them. It's kind of like right now, I don't see my audience at all, and yet we know that there's potentially 201 people on the line right now, and I'm just in the privacy of my office. As a network of clinical research trials, we should consider a strategic and coordinated approach towards social media, as well as determine how best to anchor and centralize these sorts of activities. Additionally, it's important to develop a strategy and plan policies that reflect your social media objectives. If we've piqued your interest and you want to learn more, our social media resource guide has more detailed information regarding the topics that we've presented today. The appendix includes extensive lists and links to professional organizations that are already using social media, such as all the NIDA CTN nodes, federal agencies, and substance abuse treatment centers. And it also includes some examples of policies, such as SAMHSA's Facebook comment policy. You can also go online and get access to NIDA's social media policy that has reference to many of the different platforms that we were talking about today. Meg and I would like to acknowledge the assistance of the RUC Social Media Workgroup members, the Social Media Listserv members, and the Clinical Coordinating Center. Thanks, Liz. You've been a great help. The RUC Social Media Workgroup is an open group. Should you have some expertise that you'd like to bring to this group, we'd really welcome your participation. And final slide that we have for you today is that we've put together some of our favorite web-based professional resources should you want to check them out on your own. And again, I want to thank you for your attention, and I think we're going to open up the phone lines and QA for questions.
That's right. If an audience member wants to present a question to Meg or Erin, go ahead and press *1 on your telephone, and the operator will take your request in the order it was received. If you don't want to ask a question verbally, I welcome you to use the Q&A feature located at the top of your screen. You simply click on Q&A and begin typing in the box that opens up immediately.
We do have a phone question.
Okay.
We have a phone question coming from Clint Simic. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for the information. I subscribe to about 20 different blog posts, and I disseminate the information back to my staff, but I'm trying to figure out an easier way how to do that so I don't have to go on. And right now I just cut and paste the link and email it out. What way can I do that simpler? Is that through Tumblr or blog post, setting up a new account?
Erin, do you want to answer that? Because I have a potential answer.
Meg, feel free to answer.
So one thing you might want to look into is Google Reader, which is their RSS reading application. And with that, I haven't done it myself, but I know that it's possible to star certain posts or tag them with a keyword or something, and then send your employees the link that would bring them up a list of every post that you've starred or tagged. And so if you contact us after the webinar is over, I can probably hunt down some instructions on how to do that for you, and that would certainly be a lot easier than cutting and pasting. People could actually set that link up as a feed in Google Reader themselves, and then they would be getting a steady stream of everything that you have marked for them specifically. So that might be a really easy way for you to do that.
Great. I'll contact you afterwards.
Okay, great.
This is Erin, and Meg, this might be a good point to remind people that there are some cross-platform software packages like TweetDeck or Hootsuite that allow you to post simultaneously. We cover this in the resource guide, but I don't actually log into LinkedIn and post and then logged into Facebook and post. We actually just post in TweetDeck, and then I can select which social media platforms I'd like that post to appear on.
We do have another telephone question.
Okay.
Coming from Gloria Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, ladies. Great job. My question is about concerns that people often have about the time they need to spend using social media, and if it's a big time suck, which, I mean, certainly it can be, and kind of how to modulate how much time you spend, but also being aware of the importance of monitoring a page once you set it up, and that kind of back and forth dialogue that you're looking for something like the Facebook or Google+.
You want to take that one, Erin?
Sure.
Okay.
That's a complex but excellent question, Gloria. So the one issue that Gloria alluded to was that, if you don't actually keep up on posting, then you'll sort of lose your audience. So you sort of, and mostly like Facebook and Google+, the more updates you have, you're trying to engage that community. So you don't want to abandon it for, days or weeks at a time. However, you don't necessarily need to be on every single day. And I actually sometimes use TweetDeck on my iPhone, to be able to at least check posts and know if there's anything that really needs immediate attention or some exciting news that should be immediately reposted. One of the things that I'd like to see our RUC social media work group do is actually work on a sort of best practices, but also a potential strategy. And so one of the things to save time is that I don't need to be posting about CTN publications. I should simply repost things that are disseminated from the CTN dissemination library. So there are ways in which that we can have sort of economies of scale and say, okay, I will systematically repost anything about publications from the dissemination library or actually directly from NIDA's Facebook page or their Twitter account, and you can make some strategic decisions like that, so it's not 100% original content. Meg, did you have anything to add?
No, that's pretty much what I was thinking too. The other thing that you do want to stay on top of in terms of making sure you don't lose your audience is that if people are commenting on your posts on Facebook or retweeting your tweets and stuff on Twitter, you want to respond to those people and not just leave them hanging, especially if they're asking a question. But again, most of those platforms are going to email you if someone comments, and so you're seeing those messages come in. And if no one's commenting and you get no emails, you know that you don't need to go check that post on Facebook that day maybe. And I noticed that we have some questions coming in on the little Q&A thing. So I was going to look at those. One of them is asking, what is REDCap? And I'm going to have to forward that one to Erin because I'd never heard of it either.
Okay, REDCap is awesome. If you're not using it, you need to be using it. REDCap is basically an online database. It has two versions. One component is like an online database that's actually developed for multi-site clinical trials. And so it is an online platform that you enter data on and that you can set up. The second component is something like sort of the Cadillac of SurveyMonkey. It's an online survey tool. They are not owned by a private company. They're actually collectively owned. They were originally funded by a grant from the federal government and developed out of Vanderbilt. And I think over 130 universities nationwide now have access to it. And so it's continuously growing. One of the best things about REDCap is that there's going to be capabilities to extract data from electronic health records and import that into a REDCap database, and then additionally features where they have all of the necessary federal regulations in place to protect patient health information. So it's a really great tool. And you can certainly email me if you want to learn more about it or Google it.
Okay, and another question on there is where did that go? Whoops. How do you use LinkedIn to provide information on conferences, news items, and et cetera to professional colleagues? And I would say for that one, there is like an events thing on there, right, Erin? Do you know where that is on the LinkedIn settings?
Yeah, I wish I could actually bring it up and show you. Yeah, there is the capability to do that, and you can sometimes you have to scroll further down in someone's profile, but when you can go in sort of edit features, and sometimes how you expand those is you have to add these free applications. So it actually may be you go to edit your profile settings, and then there may be an event tab that you can add, and from there it's fairly easy. And you may have received an invitation from people. I don't see too much activity using it, but it is a way, again, I have 260 connections on LinkedIn. I don't think I have everybody's email address, so it's a nice way to actually post information to my colleagues.
And I'm actually looking at LinkedIn right now, and it looks like when you're logged into LinkedIn and you see the toolbar across the top that says Home, Profile, Contacts, et cetera, at the end of that is one that says More, and if you click there, you'll see a list of applications you have access to, one of which is Events. And so you would click on that, and then you go to Create an Event. And then that will be sent out to all of your contacts as soon as you've created it.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah. Are there any other questions in there? No. Looks like we're done with the text ones. Anybody else have questions for us? Everyone's going to go tweet about this when we're done, right? Please use #awesome. Thank you.
#awesome.
Yeah.
As a reminder for parties on the phone, if you would like to ask a question, please press star then 1 on your phone.
Oh, one more. Oh, a bunch of more text ones coming in. Okay. A question from Tyler. How can sites like Reddit or Dig be used? I'm not as familiar with Reddit as I am with Dig, but Dig is mostly used to tag articles or links on the web that you have found interesting that you want people to know about, and the more people dig something, the higher up in the list on Dig it goes, so it becomes more and more visible. Is Reddit the same thing, Erin? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with Reddit, actually.
Okay, I think it's a similar thing. It's a way to just tag certain news items or other links on the web, viral videos, stuff like that, to make them more and more popular as more and more people like them. I'm not sure how that would be used in the CTN, for example, but I'm sure we could come up with something. And let's see, the little window for this got a little strange here. There we go. Is that it for, do you see other questions in there, Erin?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay, good. I don't either. So.
Right. I think you guys have it covered. Just so the audience members knows, as a post-communication to this webinar, there will be a survey that you can participate in, and you can feel free to add any information that you wish you had had more information on, or if you would like to be contacted, or anything that you want to connect with us about, you can go ahead and put that in any of the dialogue boxes, because we certainly do read each and every one of them. We love the comments boxes.
And also all of the slides and the handouts and everything will be on the CTN Dissemination Library in the CTN training section in the next week or two. So you can go there for copies, and you can also email me or Erin or the library at any time if you have questions about any of this stuff.
Absolutely. And I would welcome everyone to get onto Facebook, and you can look for CTN training. We do have a CTN training page, which I encourage you guys to like.
Definitely.
I will be posting information about the upcoming webinars and maybe some registration counts or some follow-up information. If you want to post a question, I'll do my best to follow up with you in that arena as well. So with that note, I will go ahead and put up a list of the upcoming webinars. I encourage everybody to mark their calendar and get registered as soon as the email comes across your desk. I want to send out a great thanks to Meg and Erin, who did a great job on this presentation, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on this.
You too, Liz.
Thank you, everyone. That does conclude our webinar for today.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.